Log 1. I awaken. I don't know it at the moment, but this day marks my 4th straight year of existing in the Dogscape. I push myself up from the carpet of writhing, twitching dog flesh beneath me and rise to my feet, stretching in the morning sun. It took me a while to learn to balance on the layer of solid dogs that now blankets every inch of solid ground. But nowadays I can walk and run as easily and as fast as I ever did on soil or concrete, perhaps faster. This was a city once, I think, though which one I can't remember. I only owe my guess to the massive pillars of dogs jutting into the sky. Perhaps ancient buildings now completely filled and overgrown with canine biomatter. I climbed one once, sinking my fingers and toes deep into the dog wall to gain purchase, and after hours and hours of climbing I was rewarded with an incredible vista. Fur and eyes, panting tongues and wagging tails, hugging the contours of the once barren land and stretching in a single amoebic mass farther than the eye can see. Now I don't do that though. Now I merely go about my day. I hike to the gardens where the dog plants sprout up in bizarre shapes from the floor of the Dogscape, and reach up to pluck the fetal puppy fruits right off the wagging energetic branches. I bite in the succulent flesh, the juices dribbling down my chin and dripping down to be reabsorbed by the ground flesh, and revel in the savory taste. I'm thirsty, so I range until I find one of the mother mounds, and there I suckle at a teat patch until I have had my fill of milk. Sometimes the other humans around me as well adapted to the Dogscape as I am, but I barely acknowledge them, say nothing. What, after all, is there to say? The world is different now. What meaning would our old words have? Free-ranging dogs are becoming rarer and rarer to see now. Those I do see seem as lost, as passive as I am. They too graze on the dog plants, step carefully over the undulating, bleeding dog floor, dimly acknowledging myself and one another. In the distant sky and on the far horizon I sometimes see massive forms sail or crawl or undulate, and I wonder if in this new world, normal singular ambulatory dogs have become as obsolete as I am. Log 2. I dug once, down beneath the dogs, beneath the hair and the ears and the barking. It was hard and took a lot of planning. I had to destroy one of the dog trees with my hands, rip out the twisted yards-long communal spines that served them as branches, and lash them together with tendons and skin. But soon I had tools. Pitchforks, spears, shovels. I picked the spot where the dog floor seemed shallower and set to work. The blood started sprouting when my spear first broke the surface, and didn't stop for hours and hours and hours. I was drenched in gore and viscera, covered in flecks of bone and meat and brain. But I learned to ignore the sickening, squelching sounds, ward off the smell, and just kept going deeper and deeper, spearing and leveling out dogs of stranger and stranger size and build. Dogs with 2 heads, dogs with human hands, dogs with writhing tentacles where their back legs should be. Eventually, I came to the end of the dogs, or perhaps to the beginning of whatever lays beyond the dogs. An expanse of multicolored patchwork fur that extended as far as I could dig in any direction. I could pierce it with great difficulty, but it barely bled, and try as I might, I could only barely peel the skin away, revealing a layer of striate grayish muscle beneath. It started to tremble as I watched it, shaking the very dog matter around me, and I realized that the Dogscape was beginning to regenerate itself, close in over me, seal me in so I fled, climbing back out into the light. Log 3. The stream trickled warmly past the black leathery edges of the puppy mouth stream. The saliva waters churned as they flowed from the bed of the stream, lined with the ever-lapping tongues of eager greeting puppies. To feel a rock on the shore is to find sharp milk teeth of weaned dogs, cast to the tuft of manged weeds growing into spits and banks. The head of the stream is split by a single mound of golden fur, like an upholstered boulder set with a large golden eye that swerves to see passing visitors. The waters will bubble and thrush should the eye see you. The tongues lap nervous, lovingly greetings with gurgled yips. Log 4. The Dogscape. That's what we call it. Us humans that banded together, I mean. We sit around campfires and cook the whelps we collect from the dog trees. The only flammable material we have is the acrid fur that grows everywhere. It offends all senses, but soon the meal is prepared. The only food sources are the dog trees and the mother mounds. Some foolish enough dig for meat. Though the reward is great, many don't come back, for the dog flesh regrows above them, trapping them inside the moist ground. Primitive tools are forged from bones and leather, such as shovels and knives and clothes. I have lived here for as long as I can remember. There are faint shimmers of the time before the dog flesh, but what use is there dwelling on the past when it cannot fill our stomachs in the present? I am our tribe's scribe. My name is Doc. I used to have a real name, but it escapes my memory. I record all of our findings and knowledge in my letter pages, using dog blood as ink. There were times when there were more of us. The tribe started with as many as 60 people. Now our numbers are as few as 20. Our leader is Keith. He instructs us to find food, build shelter and bring fire. He abuses his power, taking 5 wives and eating more than his share of the food, but those who speak against him meet death in the night. It is hellish, but there is no other choice. Without guidance we will die out here, so we must remain under his leadership. It has been 2 days since my last writing. I'm lucky that Keith cannot read, for if he had seen my statements about him, I would be dead. Yesterday, one of our tribe members, Cod, was killed by accidentally stepping into one of the open dog mouths. His screams of pain as it chewed forced me to crush his skull with a shovel, killing him instantly. The bastard Keith claimed Cod's food ration as his own. I can sense the others are beginning to tire of Keith's position of power as well. Nobody spoke a word at that night's feast. I will not sleep well tonight hearing Cod's screams in my nightmares. I fear for my life. Feck was killed in front of all of us by Keith today. He refused to continue digging for meat, so the monster beat him to death with his bare hands as a sign that he would not tolerate a refusal to work. I cannot stand this much longer. Feck was not even an adult. He could not have been more than 17 human years. This brings our numbers down to 18. There's Keith, his 5 wives, me, and the remaining 11 diggers and gatherers. The others whisper to me in secret that I should be leader instead. I guess they think I have all the answers because I'm the scribe. Only time will tell. I was awoken at the crack of dawn by one of the diggers, Gar specifically. He told me that the night would be the night. The others had a plan. They wanted me to announce that I am the new leader during the feast. When he is distracted with rage, they intend to kill him from behind. I tell God that I accept this plan and will assist them tonight. What have I gotten myself into? Damn them all. I told Keith I planned to replace him. He arose filled with rage. I waited for the blow to strike him. Never hit Keith. Instead it hit me. Gar was Keith's spy all along. They dragged me far away from the gardens and tied me to a barren dog tree. He said that a quick death would not befit me and I will waste away under the deathly sun. I can just barely reach my journal from here. I suppose this is the end of me. When the sun was highest in the sky, the heat became unbearable. I saw figures on the horizon. They were not human. They were the hounds that come to eat what the humans leave behind. I thought they were going to eat me. Instead, they went for the blood-soaked meat ropes that held me in place. I was free. I kneeled down to the hounds and looked deep in their eyes. I told them I knew where they could fill their bellies to the brim. They barked once in what I assumed was confirmation. I stood up and we set out to the feast. When we reached the settlement, it was amidst their feast. I approached, death in my gaze. Keith was shocked and angry. The diggers and gatherers were quick to his defense. I guess he bribed them. I whistled and the hound slinked through the fur to my side. We struck like a lightning bolt. My fist smashed into Keith's face just as my hounds pounced upon his closest guards. Though I was physically weak, I was quite fast. I stole a shovel and quickly buried it in Keith's throat while he was disoriented. The smell was sickening as I expected from a man like him. The hounds made quick work of the rest. I helped, of course. None were spared. I made sure I had my vengeance upon Gar. The hounds were quite full by the end. I took my time and buried each corpse, or what was left of them. I leave this book upon their graves in the hopes that someone who can understand it finds it. If you do, take heed of these words. The Dogscape knows all, and it is strict but fair. She provides justice where justice is due. Log 5. I had a dog right after the Dogscape happened. His name was Carl and he always followed me around. When I was almost dead from starvation, he got me dog fruits. When I was dying of thirst, he held milk in his mouth and got it to me. One day his foot got stuck in a mouse and I couldn't get him out, so I watched while it swallowed him. A few years later when I went back, Carl was right there, but he was stretched out. I went to pet him, except it wasn't him and he bit me and wouldn't let go. I wonder if people can be part of the Dogscape too. I miss Carl. Log 6. All is one in the new truce. The dog matter is vast beyond imagining, and requires many to be kept comfortable and clean. We chosen do not go unrewarded, however. In a vast wisdom the matriarch gives us all we need. We sup from a vast heat, a hearty meal unlike any other. It invigorates and nourishes us keen custodians and gives us more than we could have ever wished. The time soon approaches though to find new workers. The metamorphosis is upon many of us, and soon we will join with the glory of the dog mound. We are so different from the others as they shuffle about down among the fetal groves. Many of us have a sick coat already, and old Lawrence has already begun to walk on all fours. Soon we will shed our mortal selves and be part of the dog mother. Our mother. Log 7. I think we knew the war had been lost the day the general committed suicide. The masses of flesh and fur just spread like waves across the city. We found out that whatever it was drinking the oceans and eating anything it came across. Airstrike, tanks, bombs, it only slowed it down. We were living on borrowed time. It was unstoppable. I don't think it was until later that we noticed all the dogs were gone. And then at night, The howling. It was just too much. The former soldier's face streamed with involuntary tears as he remembered the events. He sat there, wallowing in his own emotions, telling his story to his skeleton he found. My unit. Completely wiped out. I saw those tentacles and those mouths. They tore them to shreds. I ran away even when they called for help. It's all your fault. The dog tree shifted slightly. The many eyes growing around directed their gaze towards the psychopathic man. You ruined everything. You killed my friends, my family, goddamn everyone. He ran and stabbed one of the eyes with a bone fragment. A howling noise emerged and the nearby dog tree shredded him several yards. He broke a few ribs when he hit the ground. He coughed a bit of blood but got back up and charged again. This time he ran towards one of the open mouths around and kicked several of his teeth out. It bit his foot in response, costing him a toe or two. He was so full of adrenaline he wasn't capable of registering any kind of pain. He beat and tore and bit at the flesh with his bare hands until he was knee-deep in blood and gore. One of the tubes he tore spilled some sort of digestive fluid all over him. It burned, but he had to go on. He dug and dug with his bare hands until the ground started to close above him. He kept digging until he found them, the heart and the brain. He laughed at his fortune of finding both of them so close to each other. He jammed his hands deep into the grey matter, disturbing the contents and slowly losing oxygen in his tunnel of meat. He gasped and clawed at the heart. Tearing it out of place, he collapsed and blacked out. He awoke to many tentacles burying themselves into his body. One hit his spinal cord and fused with his brainstem. A flood of thought hit him all at once as he suddenly became one with the Dogscape. More tentacles connected themselves to his vital organs as he became assimilated. He saw through every eye in the lands and he felt every single nerve on the planet. The healing factor continued tearing him apart by adding new pathways and connections. It wasn't long until it was entirely consumed. His memories faded away as his brain was reorganized into replacing the one he had destroyed. Log 8. It's been 3 years and 2 weeks now since I met another human being. I know because I've cut a small notch in my left leg for every day, one in my left arm for every week, and one in my right arm for every year. Admittedly, not the most effective way of keeping track of time, but when I started I figured I'd be dead or this would be over before it really mattered. Like I said, I haven't met any other people for a while, but I figured I would write this anyway just in case, as a warning to others that might be out there. I ran into something terrible today. Well, the whole Dogscape is terrible, but I mean more terrible. I think even among the Dogscape it's some sort of crazy abomination, since the feral dogs on the ground mouse didn't seem too fond of it either. And that screaming is not something I ever hope to hear again. But that's not the beginning. I am sorry about this. The blood I'm using doesn't really come off the paper and I can't waste any by throwing it away. And not even thinking about talking to other people for years has made me sort of bad at thinking in a straight line. But I'll try. Let me just start over at the beginning. The day started normally. It was my weekly gathering day, so I left my tent. By the way, I left the tent at the foot of the Pillar of Dogs in the direction of the setting sun if you wanted, but you probably won't because the skin has probably gone bad by now. To collect the dog fruits I would need for the week and to fill a bag or two with milk. But when I got to the place where there should have been teeth, there was just a bloody mess where someone had dug deep into the flesh of the Dogscape. I didn't really think much of it at first, just that I would need to go looking for a new source of milk. Then I saw it. I thought it was another person at first. If I had stopped to really look first, I wouldn't have had any problems and I wouldn't be writing this right now, I guess. I started shouting to get its attention, and I did get its attention because it turned to me. And then I realized that I had made a huge mistake. Thinking back, the really long arms and the twisted body probably should have been my first clue. But I didn't really see that anything was wrong until it turned towards me. And I saw what I thought was a head was just a featureless lump of flesh. Its arms unfolded outwards, each arm ending in two canine legs, and a human face at its chest opened its mouth and started screaming. I figured it was bad news then and made a mad dash for the nearest pillar of dogs, but it kept running after me and it was much faster. Somehow I managed to make it and I started scrambling to climb out of its reach. I didn't get very far before there was a sharp pain in my leg, and I looked down and saw that it had bitten me with one of the many canine mouths along the arm things. I screamed as it pulled me down, but that didn't do much and I probably would have died right then if it weren't for what happened next. Out of nowhere, a mouse I didn't even see when I started climbing the dog pillar bit down on it, and then one in the ground, and they started chewing at it, but it didn't really seem to hurt it, but I let go all the same. I ran away as fast as I could, but I could hear the screaming long after I was out of sight. I didn't sleep that night. Just before nightfall tonight, I felt like I had to make sure the Dogscape had killed it and went to the pillar, but I saw no trace of it. But the notebook I tore this paper from was there and I took that. So now, here I am. I'm not going to stay around here any longer after I finish this. But finding this notebook made me think maybe there are other people. And if so, maybe I should warn them about things like this. So if you're reading this, good luck. Oh, also, I'm moving in the direction of the rising sun, so if you can read this, you're probably another person. So if you go that direction, maybe we can meet up and be a little better off than we were. Log 9. Ticks are the only thing that seem to like this place. They are everywhere. During the evenings I can see massive clouds of the bastards flitting across the matted surface, making the flesh of the Dogscape quiver as they drink their fill. Sometimes candid legs of various size and deformity burst through the surface to scratch at them. It doesn't work. All the Dogscape gains are vast stretches of scar marks which the fleas feed upon. Sometimes I rest on the side of a large overgrowth only to realize it's a monstrous tick. They latch on to one of the deep arteries of the dog flesh and endlessly leech of the new world's lifeblood. I saw a man once. It was hot that day. I was making my way for a dog pillar and saw him in the distance. He wasn't moving, and as I approached I saw why. He was covered in ticks. Not a single spot on him was clear. What little clothes remained on him were stretched over the fuckers. There was no wind, so all you heard was the faint scuttling of their tiny legs scratching against their ludicrously swelled bodies. He must have heard me because he opened his mouth and tried to say something. His voice was raspy and his mouth was red, but he didn't manage to say one word. Itch. Log 10. Today is the 5th day of the 12 months of the 654th year. Ours is the final generation. After us, the Dogscape will be all that is left, and all remaining men will either be absorbed into the mother dog or perish from the swiftly dying world. I have only a vague memory of my mother. Whether she was killed, stolen, or absorbed, I can't say. Really, no one is quite sure what happened to the women. Slowly but surely they've disappeared, often vanishing in the night without any warning or leaving no trace. Women are the only thing of any value in this world anymore, and the primary purpose of the tribe is to protect the group's claim to a woman, who is used for the benefit of all the members. Our tribe's woman was taken several months ago. The first months we mourned her. She may have been a captive in many ways, but many of us could not help but become attached to her. The second, some of the men began engaging in homosexual activities with one another out of desperation. I'm sure that I was not the only one who realized that there was little meaning to our continued companionship, and soon the tribe would disband. This is the third month since she was taken, and it's all falling apart. First, the elder was killed over a dispute. It was really just a confirmation that the unity of the tribe no longer existed, no longer had any reason to exist without the tribe's woman, and so we began drifting apart. I know what will come next. When tribes dissipate, the members, alone and confused, come to depend on the mother dog for sex in much the same way they do for food, warmth and shelter. Mother dog sex organs dot the landscape like the seas, watering molehills in the dog flesh. The men find a sex organ to claim for their own and spend their days thrusting into it. Often they find entrances near dog trees, fucking when they are desirous and eating the fetuses when they are hungry. They have no reason ever to move from their mound. In this way, men forget the world around them and become obsessed with mother dog. No, not only a mother, but a lover too. It is their everything. It is common to see skeletons, either bare or being picked apart by dogs. Their pelvis is still breasting into a dog mound, surrounded by the still reeking stench of their own filth. Today is the 27th day of the 12th month of the 654th year. As I had predicted, the former members of my tribe have slowly but surely fallen into degenerate lives as mound humpers. The desperate scum have forgotten their own humanity. Sickening. I vow never to fall into that disgusting state. And so I will walk this lonely, depraved Dogscape searching. It can't end this way, with all humanity uselessly masturbating itself into extinction. So I continue, knowing I may end up hopeless, utterly defeated by the Dogscape. Today is the second day of the 4th month of the 663rd year. I found a woman, standing as if waiting for me under a dog tree, her mouth dyed red with the blood from a dog fetus. At one time I would have been puzzled to see a woman standing alone and unafraid, but I haven't come upon a tribe in years, and incredibly rarely does one come across a man who is not mesmerized with a dog mount. I suppose this must have been the biggest surprise to her, to have found a man who has not yet become a slave to the mother dog. In any case, it is important not to take chances. So I grabbed her, forced her down and fucked her right there. Then I tied her down to the dog tree with a length of dog flesh rope so that she couldn't run. Today is the 7th day of the 8th month of the 663rd year. My woman is pregnant. I have watched over her, protected her from the wild mongrels that still roam the Dogscape. When the swarms of ticks came, I covered her in a hide. I wonder if we are the only ones left on this planet who are still human. Today is the 5th day of the 1st month of the 664th year. My child was born today. My woman squeezed my hand, breathing hard, pushing. After some time the child came, a healthy, normal female infant. I saw that all my struggles hadn't been in vain, that our race did have a future, and I realized that I was crying. I held the child briefly and then set it down to reach for my blade to cut the umbilical cord. No sooner had I set the girl down than a furry tendril shot out from the dog tree. With a whack it wrapped quickly around the umbilical cord, gripped it tight. As the dog tree sunk into the ground before me, I hacked at the vine, but it could not be cut. Next I went for the umbilical cord, tearing with all my strength to save my girl, but the wine had melted with it and converted it into the same strong substance. And so I could only watch in horror as the dog tree disappeared in the mother dog, dragging my woman and daughter with it. I dug after them, ripped the dog flesh open enough to watch as the mutated dogs of the upper layers tore at the child's face. There is no hope for the human race. The Dogscape will not tolerate disloyalty any longer, and so I commit myself to this dark mound, to become truly one with the mother dog. What a damned fool I was for ever thinking I could beat this world. Log 11. Galactic Calendar. Year 100, Day 1. We have arrived at the closest star system from our previous home. Our world was ravaged by war and we continued through space as nomads. We have searched for a hospitable world and find this one to be to our liking. We had received signals from this planet that date back at least 700 of its rotations around their star. If they are anything like us, then generations surely have changed here. As we approached, I am puzzled, for the planet appears much different than our records indicate. The planet is a brown color, not blue, and it appears to be alive in its own right. We will send a team down and investigate. Our ship reached orbit around the planet's singular moon. There we gave the crew a final review of the information we knew about the people of this world. Our main source of communication we have received was in the form of signals they called television. Our understanding of the language will no doubt appear primitive to the dwellers below. Though personally, I feel that something is odd. We had lost all communications from this world recently. The captain assumes it was because of their switching to a higher technology. They always talked about their newest technology, which looked more and more like a race that could enter that of other spacefaring peoples. I am to go down with the rest of the team by the next day on the planet, though I watch the now brown world and feel that something is wrong. Terribly wrong. Log 12. I don't know how many days it's been since I saw the last human. It's hard for the remaining survivors of the Dogscape. Women have all gone and only a handful of men remain. But as I said, it's been days since I saw the last one. I wandered the furry fields looking for a teeth patch when I stumbled across something both very horrifying yet wonderful at the same time. I looked down at what appeared to be a patch of both male and female reproductive dog organs. I stared, fascinated as they endlessly paired with each other. I knew I should have looked away, but I just couldn't. After a while of watching them breed endlessly, they seemed to stop. It appeared that they finally sensed me. I almost felt bad for interrupting, so I started to walk away, but I felt something grab a hold of my leg. I looked down to see a mutated dog paw holding tightly to my pant leg. I tried to pull my leg from its grasp, but it held on. Then, to my horror, it started pulling me to the middle of the organ patch. I frantically began to fight to get loose, for I knew what it wanted. More dog paws sprouted up and began pulling me. I knew I didn't stand a chance. I knew that I would be joined with a mother dog in the end, so I silently accepted my fate. At least I would die happy. Log 13. Malashite tribal worship of the Dog Mother in all its visible and fleshy glory is the most common form of religion in the barbaric Dogscape. There does exist another mythology, one practiced only in distant isolated pockets and by a few of the older survivors. The exact details change from tribe to tribe, year to year, but the basics never change. It is the legend of the beginning of the Dogscape, the genesis of the world we know. It tells of a time when humans were plentiful and walked upon ground that wasn't alive. There is a god, or a demon perhaps. A dog that lived amongst the humans, was even accepted and provided for by a human family. But it was no ordinary dog. The beast lived for over 50 years, while canines of the time rarely lasted more than a decade. It was greatly powerful, more in control of its owner family than they were of it. They say it went out at night and hunted human prey, bringing back large collections of bones as trophies to its home. But the humans tried to ignore it, convincing themselves that it wasn't a problem. Soon though, as the origin dog reached a century of age, it became increasingly powerful and unlike others. There were more strange disappearances and even attacks during the day. Vehicles were found with deep bite marks through metal and homes were burrowed in from below. The government of the time, many times more powerful than any chieftain of the day, captured the hellhound. They performed experiments, tried to understand where it channeled its energy from. Progress was good. It looked as though even the secret to immortality could be gained from this dog. But accidents occur. The betrayer, as they call her, who worked at a government facility, felt sympathy for the guard dog. She released him and concurrently the all-consuming hell that is the Dogscape. The enraged beast no longer had any sympathy for humanity. As it thrashed recklessly through the lab, mutated samples adhered to its flesh, growing like cancer. Soon what would become the Dogscape was spreading like wildfire, its mark gnashing at everything that moved, its height spreading over soil, stone, and sea. What is the name of this horrible demon? It varies, but they all come from a similar etymological origin, I believe. I have taken down names from all over the world. Armad, Miam, Arduk. And yet the Dog Mother is most certainly feminine. Well, it is said the betrayer was in fact the first human assimilated into the Dogscape. Log 14. It is cold here. Jets of moist breath dot the landscape amid undulating hills. There are no proper dog trees, only short piles of huddling dog limbs. Teats are few and far between, and when I find one, I must work to coax the milk into a skin bladder. I move across the hills, my feet numb to the shoes I have fashioned. I move in the direction that seems easiest, a supple and mangy slope that I only just noticed was guiding my paths in a general downhill fashion. Where there is fur, it is thick and rancid with matted oil. I don't know why the mother does what it does, but all of her fruits have their uses. I hack at the fur clump, separating it from the flesh below. There's only a little blood from a grazed skin tag. I fold and shape the waxy fur onto the insulating hair coverings on my body. The dog flesh rumbles beneath me in a more than disconcerting way. It has been doing that for the past several weeks. More though the further I have traveled. It is getting colder. I can hear only the wind now tearing across the mother. The howls, wobbling and mournful, have stopped. The sharp barks and yips no longer form a background cacophony. I huddle into my coverings and shoulder ahead. I have no path to follow but forward. The ground feels hard here. The gentle gift of the darkland has ceased, giving way to a dull, sound-absorbing thud of matted fur. I slipped yesterday in what seemed to be a lake of solid piss. It was not reabsorbing into the mother. My own shivering seemed to syncopate with the occasional rumbles of the mother. Her flesh no longer seems like a living being, but I know that deep within her the blood flows. It is so cold here. I continue forward every day. The ground slopes more and I struggle to sleep in a forgiving skin fold. There is no purpose but to move forward now, one foot in front of the other. It has been dark for as long as I can remember. How long will this night last? The air is dry. The land is mostly featureless and hard as I walk. The wind blows clumps of brittle hair across my face and they hurt. A soft pop, a subtle blue flash, and then they blow past me. My hands are deep within my coverings. They are numb, and if I expose them to ward off the shock, then the cold will take them from me. I have already lost 3 toes. I can no longer feel that foot. I no longer bother to light fires in the deep groups where I sleep. But the last I saw of the foot, it was black and swollen. It felt like it was burning. My travel is slow. I have heard soft, subtle tapping sounds, but when I investigate, I find only dog claws moving against the ground. The rumbles have continued, and with them now come subtle rending sounds like a mouse chewing on a bone. When the sounds intensify, I move faster. I don't know what causes them, but I do not think it is the mother. I've not found any teats in a long time. I am thirsty and my skin bladder is almost empty. I would kill my own parents for a fresh puppy fetus. I passed a small pile of humans almost buried in billowing dried fur. They were dead and desiccated. They looked like they were strong when they lived. I keep moving. There's only the road ahead of me. I do not know what it leads to. The ground shifted beneath my feet and I pissed in fear. Not a mouse, but a great hard chasm of flesh and bone had torn open beneath me. A stinking, humid burst of air bellowed out and hung in the cold cloud around me. On my ass I peered into the gloomy hole that had nearly swallowed me, but it was now still. I sat and contemplated it, breathing heavily and thought of my empty skin bladders. Slowly I could hear sounds several dozen feet below me start to play and echo in the cleft. A soft slapping, then a gurgle. I don't know how, but I knew this was my chance for sustenance. I slid into the meaty maw. I climbed down a shorn slab of giant ribs, still red and moist, and finally landed on the steaming dark floor of the hole. It risked beneath my feet. I felt around, not knowing what I was looking for, when my hands fell upon a thumbing tube set in the meat wall. An artery. I grabbed it, pulling at the connective flesh, and then bit at it. The blood shot out in spurts and I drank my fill. I was covered in viscera. I struggled to fill my skin bladders. The cleft shuddered around me and I knew I must leave it immediately. The walls were starting to hang tendrils of meat, feelers to heal this damaged canyon. I exhausted myself climbing out and nearly fell back in as I crested the edge of the crack out into the cold night. The dark flesh slowly mounted behind me as I panted on the hard ground. Before I left, I considered it and catalogued it. A stretch mark. The mother was still growing. I am so weak and it is so cold. My filled bladders of blood are gone and the grey Dogscape stretches before me. I must make it to my goal, but I don't know what my goal is. I have walked for what seems like months in the darkness. I climbed down a huge mass of frigid dark flesh. It is like a great heap of small dogs, a pile of dark heads and legs, a mound of tails and torsos. It is cold and lifeless. A slow, low creaking can be heard deep within it. I grip an ear and lower myself to the bottom of the wall of dog, and my foot lands on something else. I gasp, then I get caught in a fit of coughing. I don't know what I'm standing on, but it is not the mother. I feel queasy, nauseous. What could possibly be not the mother? It is frigid and hard, but I scrape at it and bits of dandry coldness come up off of it. I hold them close to my face and my breast turns the stuff to water. I try to eat a handful of it, but it is so cold that it robs me of almost all my remaining energy. The moisture trickles down my throat. It is good. I look behind me at the dark wall with its exposed frozen bones and happy-looking faces, then ahead of me at the featureless darkness. I am too far gone to turn back now. I continue walking for hours, then sleep, then walk more. My footsteps are leading. Finally, ahead of me, I see a light. I make my way towards it slowly over the course of several hours. It is a beacon to me now, a bright, glowing, steady fire. As I approach, I see that the guiding light stands on a pole before a series of low, dark structures. They are like solid walls of bone, but not. They are not of dog flesh. The billowing hair and cold, dandry water pile against the sides. I know that this is what I was destined for. At one end, near the light, is a dark panel set into the wall. On it are markings placed there by some person's hand, but I don't know what they say. AIS1 and entrance. I shoulder against the panel, but it barely shudders. I try again and again. I am renewed with purpose by the discovery of this place, but I am weak from my travels. I lean back to the panel and slide down it exhausted. My back catches against a low bar set in the panel, pushes it down and then clicks. The panel gives way and I fall into the darkness within. I'm in a small, dark, dry cave. It is alien to me. The wind blows debris and fur into the room with me. I look around. Strange, dark masses seem to leer at me. There are soft white skins hanging on the wall and more of their unusual markings everywhere. Proceduralist and keep closed and warning and wear radio at all times. A bright red cylinder with yellow stripes is inside a small box. I reach for it, but my hands scramble against a clear covering across the entrance to the box. I look at my hands now. They are purple and I cannot feel them anymore. Another panel is on the opposite wall like the one I had opened. I move toward it feebly. I am so cold. I pull on the handle set in the panel, but it does not move. A small red light flashes above it. I pull harder, but it does not move. I pull again, jumping, but lose my balance and lurch to the ground. I smack my head with a dull thud. The cold is blowing in fiercely from the opening behind me. I scrape against the hard panel, but it will not move. More markings adorn it. Close outer door first. I do not understand them. I sit against the panel. My vision is blurry and a trickle of my own blood seeps across my eye. I go to sleep there, leaning against the dark doorway. I sleep and do not wake up. Epilogue. My name is Charles Mantell of Arctic Ice Station 1. The abomination is not here, it is too cold. Tiger and I are the last survivors. We are 14 nautical miles south of the North Pole, directly north of Vancouver. Triangulate our position based on its radio signal. This message will repeat in 5 minutes. The radio broadcast the message again, as it had thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times. The cold, dead, desiccated bodies had huddled before the radio system in a chair. At its feet lay the curled, dead body of a mutt.